worker at Telfed. Over the past 2.5 years, life in Israel has placed enormous emotional strain on all of us. In response, Telfed has been developing a range of initiatives aimed at supporting the well-being of the South African and Australian communities in Israel. Most of us are not only carrying the lingering stress of the October War, which lasted for more than 2 years, but we are also living with the ongoing threat from Iran, an added weight that sits heavily on our national and personal consciousness. None of us faces these challenges in isolation. We do not live in a bubble. Our emotional state inevitably influences those around us. It can be our spouses, our children, our friends, our parents, and our colleagues. When we struggle, the ripple effect is felt by the people we love and interact with every day. So the real question becomes, how do we hold ourselves together? How do we stay grounded, steady, and emotionally available to ourselves and to others? This evening, Devorah Kur, an expert in the field, will guide us in exploring how we can move from survival to strength, building resilience by tapping into the wisdom of the body. Her approach will help us understand what we are holding, how it affects us, and how we can begin to shift toward greater balance and inner stability. If you have any questions, there'll be time to ask questions at the end. Please write your questions in the little box chat at the bottom of the screen. Press that and you can write your questions. Devorah, passing this over to you.
Thanks so much, Louise, and so wonderful to be here, and always a pleasure and a privilege to speak for Telfed. And okay, so we're looking at tools. What can we do to help ourselves get through difficult times? We've all come through, and we're not even out of 2.5-year war with a lot of stress and a lot of trauma. So before we look at the actual tools that I want to give you tonight, I want to share with you a little bit first about what is trauma and how does trauma sit in our bodies. So I'm going to explain things to you, and then I'm going to give you some resources at the end, and we'll look at what we can do to gain some tools for ourselves at what we can do to help ourselves. So first is understanding what is trauma and what does it do in our bodies. So Dr. Peter Levine, who is the founder of somatic experiencing, which is one of the trauma methodologies that I've studied, he says, trauma is a fact of life. It doesn't, however, have to be a life sentence, right? There are ways that the body can actually discharge and release trauma. The problem is when it piles up and there's a bit more and a bit more and a bit more and more and more and more, and then it's overwhelming the system. So we want to be able to see what we can do to try and manage that and to allow that to start coming out of our system. So trauma isn't something that just sits here in our brains. It actually sits in the body. It lives in the body. And what it really is excess energy that gets stuck in our systems. And we want to be able to lishachrer, they say in Hebrew, get rid of it, discharge it, let it release out of our systems. So our nervous systems are actually designed to heal. But what happens with trauma is it's too fast, something happens too fast, too much of it happens, and too soon. And there is this backlog, and on top of that happens in our systems, and then they shut down. So I want to tell this method of understanding how our brain works from something that Professor Daniel Siegel from UCLA, he gives over, and I learned this in my course when I studied somatic experiencing. So if this is the brain, and this is the spinal cord, right? So we're going to understand the different parts of the brain. So first we have this part of the brain, which is here, the prefrontal cortex, okay? And this is where our thoughts happen. This is where you manage to come here on time, and you and analytical, it's logical, thinks fast, it's creative. This is where it all happens, in this part of the brain, the thinking brain with thoughts. Deep inside here, we have the limbic brain. The limbic brain is the emotional brain. This is where all the emotions happen. So this part here at the end, the tip of my finger, is the size of the amygdala. The amygdala is the seat of emotions. It's where all emotions are registered in the system. And next to it, there's something tiny called the hippocampus. The hippocampus registers when and where things happen, when it took place, where you were, that sort of information. When emotions become too overwhelming, the amygdala shuts down. It shuts down and will keep thinking that the danger is still there, even if time has passed, right? So a dog from when you were 6 years old that could have chased you, right, and left emotions of fear. Then when you're 30 years old and you see a dog, what happens is becomes too overwhelming, shuts down of when and where, and all of a sudden you are responding as if you are 6 years old. But there's hope of what we can do about that. Okay, so the first part of the brain is the thoughts. The second part, the limbic brain, is the emotions. And deep inside here, we have the reptilian brain, the brain stem. This is the same brain that animals have. And probably most of you callers on here are from South Africa or Africa, Australia, have been on some type of safari. So Dr. Peter Levine, he did these studies on animals. And I grew up going to the bush every year, and we would see impalas running, being chased by leopards. That was a good day if you saw something like that. But what he learned, Dr. Peter Levine, by studying animals, is that an impala, if it is running away from, let's say, a leopard, and it senses it can't escape, right? It tries, it can't escape. What it will do is it will drop on the ground and fake death. Now, a leopard will not eat dead meat. So it will come, will sniff around a bit, and it will say, no, I didn't kill this meat, I'm not eating it, and it walks off, right? When the impala senses that the leopard is gone, it shakes, gets up, and goes off to eat lunch. No PTSD. So Dr. Peter Levine realized there's something about the body. The body actually experiences the trauma, holds the trauma, and also needs to release the trauma. So this part of the brain, deep inside, this third part of the brain is the reptilian brain where trauma sits. Okay, and this is the one that brings us the ability to fight, to run away, or to freeze. These are our trauma responses, or fawn is a fourth one. It is also this part of the brain that organizes our autonomic nervous system functions like sleep, digestion, appetite, breathing, sexual ability. So if there is trauma and overwhelm in this system, it makes sense that things like sleep, eating, breathing, appetite, all sorts of things like that will get disrupted. Okay, so the prefrontal cortex is for thoughts, the limbic system is for emotions, and this system works on sensation, called the felt sense. So what am I talking about when I say the felt sense, right? So if I'm angry, I might feel that in my jaw, right? A clenching. Or if I'm scared, my heart might be beating, right? And I'm feeling my pulse is elevated. If I'm waiting for the doctor to call me with the results, I might feel a knot or a twisting in my stomach. Or if I've lost someone dear to me, I might feel a gripping in my throat, like I'm being strangled. These are the sensations, and this is how this part of the brain speaks to us, the brain, the survival brain. Now, it's so interesting to know that this brain checks up 4 times every second, am I safe? So let's say I'm driving and I hear an ambulance. I'm like, oh, do I need to get out of the way? Do I need to move? Where am I? Where is it? And I see, oh, it's the other side of the road. And then I can calm down. Okay. Now, our bodies are designed to process trauma unless it's too much. So let's say that thing with the ambulance happens. There's different ways that the body can discharge trauma. Okay. So it could be gurgling in the stomach, burping, goosebumps, sweating, yawning, and a breath that looks like this. Now, that's not ordinary breathing. That is a breath that the body takes to discharge. Remember I said our bodies can discharge for us unless it's too much and it's too piled up, right? So our bodies know what to do. This is the felt sense. So I want to take it just an example for you to feel this, okay? So let's do it because it works from the side of trauma and also works on the side of healing. So if you were to imagine an infinity side, this side is the trauma vortex. And what sometimes happens is we spiral and we get lost in there. Too much for the system, and we can't. But on the opposite side is the healing vortex, okay? So let's just take, for an example, because I want you to feel the felt sense. Let's take, for an example, the something from the healing. So think of a happy memory, right? You can all just think of a happy memory, something that feels good in your system, right? A memory, not a mixed memory, but a memory of a joyous time, a blessing, a simcha, something wonderful, being with someone special, a special moment. So just take a moment and just close your eyes and really just try and recall that memory in your body. Notice what you were wearing. We want to bring the 5 senses into it. What you were wearing, where you were, what was the weather like, who else was there, what did you see, what did you smell, what did you touch. Really let yourself go in deep into this beautiful memory, happy memory, right? And just feel what happens in your body. Maybe there's a bit of a dropping of the shoulders. Maybe your breath slows down a bit. Maybe there's a breath of, wonderful. Maybe there's some opening in the chest, more space, spaciousness. And maybe you could just write in the chat if anyone has any kind of warm feeling that they want to share or what that was like. Maybe you can put in the chat. I'm not sure if I can see the chat or not. So someone, maybe Louise or someone, type something in the chat just so I can see if anyone's typing something. So let's just have some feedback. What was that like to sit in that nice place? The whole body remembers, not just the mind, but the body remembers. And that's what we want. It's felt in the body, the good things as well as the difficult things. Okay, there are no comments so far in the chat. Okay, that's fine. All right. So if there's anything you've noticed, I'm hoping someone has noticed something, and that will be good. Okay, that's what happens when we go to something of special, something of healing, something of blessing, something of wonderful, happiness, joy, simcha. We go to places like that. It will also be felt in the body. And the equal and opposite is also true of what will be felt in the body. So the difficulties, the challenges, the fear, the anger, the rage, the being scared, the not knowing, what do we do now when we just don't know? When will this be? When will this happen? What do we do then? Okay. So our body can release stuck energy if we just focus on it. Okay. But it's one thing at a time. We don't want to bring in, there's 50 things I'm scared about, and there's the last 10 news broadcasts that I watched, all that's sitting on me. What we want to do is just take one thing at a time and see what happens. As we focus on it, it may appear as like or it catches your breath, or it closes your heart, or your stomach goes into a knot, or your jaw gets tight, right? We just want to stay with that one thing, and we don't want to do anything else. And just like that shaking impala, when the shaking stopped, it got up and it went to eat lunch. Okay. So if you notice, maybe just choose something. I don't want you to choose the biggest thing that's causing you trauma or stress right now. Choose something small that's a little bit difficult, and just notice maybe, where does that land in your body? What tells you this is hard? What tells you this was uncomfortable? Maybe there was a time you needed to call someone to apologize. Ooh, a yucky feeling. Where's that yucky feeling? We can recall it, right? We can recall things even from 50 years ago, right? Someone didn't invite you to a party and that feeling of being left out. You can go back to it as if it happened yesterday. So when we are in this part of the body and we are focusing on the sensation of that pain of being left out, just stay with it and notice what happens. This is what we do. One sensation at a time. We stay with it, feel that unpleasant, the yucky, and then notice and see. Maybe it starts to dissipate a little bit. Maybe it starts to lessen a little bit. And actually what happens is trauma is often something that we just hold inside. Didn't want someone to see me crying, or it was too embarrassing for me, or it was too shocking, or something we saw, or something we did, and we can't talk about it. And so it gets buried. And what happens is when there is a witness, even if we are the one who are witnessing, sometimes we go to a therapist and they can help us, or we go to a caring friend, or to a sibling, or to a parent, or wherever we go to get our support. Just that sense of what I'm carrying has been shared. Someone felt me. They could be in my space. That helps to lessen it a bit. Okay? So maybe you can even imagine someone being with you in that space, right? Of that little example of something that was difficult. Or maybe you just stay there and you see your younger self. Maybe it happened last week, or maybe it happened 20 years ago or more. See yourself and just offer some compassion. Sorry that happened. And just notice what happens inside when there is a witness to what you've been through. A bit of a relief. Something can lessen in the system. Okay? So what we want to do is start noticing as I have these thoughts. Let's say we've been on high alert now for something like 6 weeks about Iran, 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 Iran. So many of my clients, I'm hearing, oh, I wonder if it will be tonight. Oh, I wonder if it will be on a Friday night. What happens if it's on Shabbat? What happens now if it's on Purim? People are getting really, 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 really scared because they just don't know what's it going to be, when's it going to be, right? So what I want you to do, and if those are thoughts you're having, is I want you to check, where does that land in your body? Where does that land in your body? Where do you notice that tension? Maybe it's in your chest. Maybe it's in your jaw. Maybe it's in your shoulders. What is happening in your body as you have those worries? And you know what? Also, it makes total sense if people are worried. We have been in and out of shelters through traumatic news, videos, hearing it again and again, seeing it again and again and again. And what it's doing to the nervous system is just piling things up, and that's when shutdown happens. So what we want to do, especially with trauma, and my teachers always say this, we slow things down, we go slowly to get there quickly. Because one at a time, we lessen it, and it's like a pressure cooker. You know, a pressure cooker, it's like psh, psh, lets off some of the steam. We discharge it. So this is how it works, and it's not really rocket science, but we get these feelings, right? I worked with a parent who lost a son, a soldier during the war, and whenever they were in public speaking about it, they would get all choked up, and they couldn't talk and would try and push through. I'm sure you know that feeling when we push through, try to get to the other side. And I said to them, why don't you just notice this terrible ache here, this pain that feels like it is strangling you? Let's just stay with it. It's in such pain. Let's just notice it and see what happens next. That's the sentence. Let's just notice it, the grip, the pain. And I'm sure you all have your sensation where it hits you in your body, but this is what I did with this parent. And after a while, it settled, and then they could speak again. They could speak. So what happens is we always try and push through. We try and telling someone a story, and we're feeling all choked up, but we push through. And what I want to tell you is if you could show this part of the brain and your body, if you could be with it in those times, you wouldn't push through. Because what it wants to be is it wants to be witnessed. It wants to be seen. It's a quote that I actually want to read to you. Okay. This quote comes from Danielle Burnock. It says, trauma is personal. It does not disappear if it is not validated. When it is ignored or invalidated, the silent screams continue internally, heard only by the one held captive. When someone enters the pain and hears the screams, healing can begin. So sometimes it's an outsider. We need an outsider to come in and hold us and say, what happened? That was so hard for you. Tell me about it. I'm listening. They're not trying to fix it. We don't need it fixed. We just need it witnessed. Sometimes we need it fixed. But before we can fix, we need to first be felt, right? We need to be felt before things can be fixed. So I want to also get to speaking about resources, right? We build up resiliency as we go along in life, right? So we all have resources. We have internal resources and external resources, things that help us feel good. And it's really important. And this is an exercise we can start now, but can also be done after the session. You can continue with it. We have internal resources and we have external resources. An external resource might be, I love dancing, I love music, I love the beach, I love the forest, I love Pilates, I love surfing, I love pottery, I love praying, I love fill in the blank, cheesecake, I love cheesecake. What is your fill in on that? What do you love? What do you love? What can you say there? These are my resources on the outside, right? When I need to fill myself up, I go to the beach or the forest. What's that place for you? Right? So think of some resources. Maybe it's a person. I love my child. I love my dog. I love my pet. I love my parents. I love fill in the what are the things that are those good resources externally. And we also have internal resources like I love that I'm a good dreamer, right? I love my confidence. We can fill in also my faith. I love that I have faith. We all have internal resources and we have external resources. I love my creativity. I love that I can sing. What is it internal that you have? Things you know about yourself that make you feel good, like remember we spoke about this side, the healing side. What are the things there? So let's take one, a resource that you love, right? And let's think about the resource. And I don't want you to bring like a mixed resource. I love my pet, but currently it's shedding all over the house and I can't stand it. I don't want you to bring something mixed. I want you to bring something that's just like the beach. I love sunset, or I love hiking in mountains, or I love traveling, or I love singing, right? I love a good cup of tea. My daughter says tea is like a hug in a cup. What are those resources that you have that feel, right? Because that is helping the nervous system to regulate. And that's what we want. We want to be able to move and help discharge from the body. And sometimes we have to bring things from the outside to help ourselves. So let's sit with some resources and just pick one for a moment. And just like we did with that memory, that happy memory we did before. So close your eyes again and go into this resource. For me, I'm going to go into the forest. I also love to hug trees. So just even as I say that, hug trees, I get a warm feeling in my stomach. And I just feel that my breathing slows down and what the greenery and the smell of the forest. So just allow yourself to now really go into that space. and find a resource. Be with a resource using all your senses. What it looks like, what it smells like, what tastes are there, what's the touch of it, what are the sounds in this place. And notice what happens inside. Notice how you sit when you're in this place. Maybe it's all relaxed, or maybe it's more confident and upright. Maybe it's open. Maybe you take more space. Right? And just really enjoy this resource. Enjoy being in this place. Right? Okay, and if anyone wants to share anything, you're welcome to also, again, put in the chat what that feels like. It's nice for me because I can't see anyone. So it is nice if we get some communication. If you felt something of, oh, thank goodness, a break from the news. Thank goodness, a break from my worries about X. Right? So see if there's something that came up with you. If anyone wants to share, that will be great. Otherwise, I'm hoping it's going through and that you're able to find those resources. So I invite you to keep the list going, right? What else is it? Your favorite food, your memories from childhood, your special clothing you love to wear. Maybe it's a texture. Maybe it's a smell. I love vanilla. I love candles. What is it that you love? Love the lavender. What about a hot bath or a strong shower? People are doing ice baths today. That would not be a resource for me, but for some people, that's a resource. That freshness, right? Everyone's resources are different. So what would be your resources? And these are things we can dip into when the nervous system is feeling overwhelmed, right? Okay. So now I want to move to just speaking about 3 different lanes. I studied with Dr. David Kessler in America. He runs a course on bereavement, and I work a lot with bereavement. And he speaks about there's 3 lanes we can drive in. The first lane is my lane, driving in my lane. The second lane I can drive in is your lane. Push you out, drive in your lane. And the third lane I can drive in is God's lane. Right? So we have 3 lanes. My lane, your lane, God's lane. And what he says is, most of the time, we are so busy in your lane and God's lane that we don't even spend time in my lane. And the truth of the matter is, we're so caught up with, if he would just do this, or if she would just do that, then everything would be fine. Or if God hadn't brought this or done this, or everything would be fine. Right? We spend time in places where the truth is we actually have no chance of changing what's there. The only way to change a situation is if we change. So always when I'm working with clients, I say to them, I can hear that this situation is very difficult for you. What if nothing on the outside changed? What happens inside of you? Because that is where we want to work. That's where the work needs to be done. That's your lane, right? You may not be able to change that. You don't know what's happening with Iran. That's their lane and God's lane, right? But you do know that if you could tap into some resources, if you could maybe put some water bottles or some food or some snacks, at least that's something in your lane that you can prepare with that might help you feel a little bit more in control. You might be able to say, I only watch the news from X to X time, and then the rest of the time I let go. We want to see what can we do to stay in our lane more, because what happens is we get caught in those other 2 lanes where we have no control. We only have control about ourselves. We can only change ourselves, right? So that's just something to think about. The other thing that I want to speak about is something around self-care, right? People always talk about self-care. I need a self-care day. And there's another quote that I want to tell you from one of my colleagues, and he says, self-care isn't about eating chocolates and having long bubble baths. Self-care is about creating a life that you don't regularly have to escape from. I just absolutely love that quote because it's not like, oh, I've had so much, I need to take a break, right? That we get to the end of our tether. We need to be able to create a life that looks like self-care, right? And there's a few different categories that fall under self-care. So I want to just bring those up, and there's maybe things you could think about here. The first realm is the physical side of self-care. What are we eating? Are we exercising? How are we sleeping? Are we sleeping enough? Are we watching scary movies or the news before we go to sleep? All of those things, and we're talking about my lane now. What can I do? We can't control that there is news out there, and there's horrible news out there. We can't control that, but we can control, is that the news I want to take with me when I'm ready to go to sleep? Is that what I want to put in my system? So the first one we're looking at is physical self-care. How are we feeding this beautiful vehicle, this body that takes me around in the world? How am I looking after that? Right? Am I giving it fresh air? Am I walking on the beach? Am I walking on the grass? Right? Today there's astroturf everywhere. There isn't many places to find grass. But what am I doing to take care of my body? Am I exercising? Right? Am I doing unhealthy habits to my body? Right? So this is something of self-care where we can maybe feel more in control. Right now, there's a situation, especially in Israel, where we are not in control. At any moment, that siren could go or the warning on the phone could go. And notice if you had some kind of physical, felt sense reaction when I said that, or a tightening or a, stay with it. Just notice it. Notice it. There have been so many of those. It makes sense that your body would react to that. And we can't control that. If that's going to happen, it's going to happen. What we can control is how we're going to show up to that. Okay, so the first is the physical. Next is mental. Do we go somewhere to, right? You know that whole thing, hey Jude, don't carry the world on your shoulders, right? Just share it. Share it with someone. It's helpful to speak to a friend, offload a bit. This has been worrying me. And if you need, get some therapy, go to a support group, find a way to get mental self-care. Okay. The third one is emotional self-care. There are beautiful techniques that we can do, like journaling, gratitude writing. Write down, if you could think right now, what am I grateful for? Let's do that for a moment. Think of 3 things that right now, even with this unknown and stressful situation that we're living in, right now, what are you grateful for? Take a moment. They could be people, it could be health, it could be purpose, could be meaning. Right? And if you can't find anything, even just knowing that your lungs work, your bladder works, right? Your heart is beating. These are things to be grateful for. You know, like we get a paper cut on our finger, was like, I didn't realize how important this finger was. I can't tie my shoelaces. I can't do a bra. I can't do stuff without this finger. But I never thought about this finger yesterday, right? If you take a moment to think right now that your liver is working, what a blessing. Because if it wasn't, we'd be having a whole lot more other issues. So emotional well-being is about feeling grateful, right? And all of these things you can fill in. What else could you do there? I'm just giving suggestions on how you can be in your lane. You have control about what you do, okay? There's also spiritual well-being, right? Does prayer fit into your daily practice? What about meditation or yoga? Something of breathing, of stopping for a moment, of noticing, right? There's a transition from coming from the outside. If, let's say you work and then you come home, before you come home and you open the door, stop for a moment. And before you open that door, just think, wow, I'm walking into the sun. Who's going to greet me? I'm leaving behind my day and I'm stepping into a new space. I can choose what energy I want to bring into that space, right? We can't choose what's in his lane. We can't choose what's in God's lane, but we do get to choose there. How do I want to walk into this space? I get to choose that. And what's happening is when we don't know what's going to be, we feel so helpless and out of control. So we want the antidote for that is, well, what can I be in control of? I can be in control. I'm going to cook dinner. And if I live alone, I'm going to cook dinner for myself. My granny, who lived to 102, she was widowed very young. She was 60. And she cooked for herself every night a protein with 3 colors of vegetables on the plate, right? And that was how she looked after herself. Just because she was living alone didn't mean she was not taking care of her body. And then there was 1 square of chocolate after dinner, only 1. Yeah, that was my granny. Okay, so spiritual well-being is prayer, meditation, yoga. What does that look like for you? Okay, intellectual self-care could be about, do you take time to read? Are there interests outside of your career or what you do in life that you're learning, you're reading up about? Are there hobbies that you do? What do you do to, increase your knowledge just because? Right? That's something else you can be in control of. There's social self-care. Who are the people you love spending time with? And you know what? We all learned this in COVID. We were isolated and, in lockdown all on our own. But we have these amazing, amazing technologies of WhatsApp video. And I love it. Like I send a message to my sister-in-law in New Jersey, and within a second, she's responded like, how did it get there so fast? Right? We have ways, even if we are alone, of how we can still stay connected. We don't need to make phone calls. We can make video calls, right? A grandparent who has children on the other side of the world can have story time with grandma, right? On video, showing the pictures, right? How do we do our social connections with family, with friends, right? With like-minded people, right? If the people who are your family or your friends don't really get you, do you find people who do? Do you hang out with those people? What about financial well-being, right? Budgeting, splurging. How do you allocate holidays? Where do these things fit in as well? So we want to be able to look at that as well. So in times of difficulty, struggle, and challenges, we want to know that, yeah, sometimes there is nothing we can do about it. There's nothing we can do to change it. We just don't know. And all of us have seen, especially over the last 2.5 years, that in 1 second, lives can change. We just don't know. We don't know. And where we can do something about it is, well, in my lane, what can I do about that? How can I show up to that despite that? How can I process it and be with the difficulty? Oh, that's so painful. Or, oh, I'm so scared. And we can just, as we've learned tonight, to stop, notice the sensation in your body. Where is it? Is it my chest is pounding? Are my arms shaking? Is my stomach in a knot? Just stay with it and stay with it until it settles down. And actually, the research shows, because somatic experiencing has been researched a bit, that if you stay with that sensation, that nasty sensation, and that parent who I worked with who was always choking each time they spoke about their child, right? They were couldn't get it out and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. And I said, don't push. Just say, give me a moment and stay with the pain. And within 90 seconds, the pain will go. The problem is if we don't stay with it and give it a chance, like that internal witnessing of it, it stays and stays. And then more builds on top of it. And then, and then, and then, and then it's too overwhelming. So we've gone through quite a few things tonight, and I want to just backtrack. We discussed a little bit about what is trauma, how trauma affects us, and which part of the brain. We have a thinking brain, feeling brain, and a survival brain, right? Which checks 4 times every second, am I safe? We don't even know it. You hear a bang outside. How many times do you hear, that motorbike going, and you think, oh, siren? No, no siren. Oh, thank God, no siren. Okay, we all know those feelings. Why? Thank God our nervous systems are working. They come, and then just as there's that alert, you can relax. And maybe there's a breath. Oh, thank goodness. That's your body taking care of you. Your body is designed to look after you, right? But sometimes we need to help it. And we said that trauma is things that happen too much, too fast, and too soon. So we need to put the brakes on, and we need to take a moment and check inside. Where's that in my body right now? And just put a hand there. Okay? There's another thing I want to tell you. If things are too overwhelming and you're panicking, there is this thing called the butterfly hug. I'm sure you've all heard about it by now, 2.5 years into the war, and you've probably all heard about this. But it looks like this. You put your hands on your shoulders and you just start tapping. Just keep going. Just keep tapping. Just keep tapping. Okay? And watch what happens. Watch what happens. And what's really happening and what we're doing, this isn't just a hug technique, even though it does feel like a hug, is we have a nerve in the body, the vagus nerve, which travels all the way around the body. And we are touching it on both sides and bringing it back to regulation. Okay? It's a beautiful gift that we can give ourselves. Okay? That's one thing. Here's something else we can do. What happens? The thinking brain, you can say, but I was 5 years old when that dog chased me. Why is it still in my system now? Right? That's the thinking brain talking. The emotional brain is scared. And the traumatic side here is like, this is happening now. Right? When we're in this place, we can't think straight. But your thinking brain knows, I'm safe. Dog can't get me now. I remember dogs did get me, and maybe that needs to be processed through, with a trauma therapist. But the thinking brain knows I'm all right now. Okay? And even if there aren't guarantees, like now there is unknown, and there are so many unknown things, right? But what we want to do is try and bring the body back to some regulation. So the first thing is notice, where do I feel that in my body? And stay with it. We can do the patting, the butterfly tapping. The next thing you can do, look around the room, and you can look around your room now, wherever you are, or you can look behind me and see if you can find 4 circles, 4 things that are circles. Take a look and look for 4 circles. Okay. Now that you've found 4 circles, the next thing to look for is 4 things that are the color blue. Okay. Now I want you to find 4 different textures, like wood, glass. Look around and find 4 different textures. Okay. And the last thing I want you to do is I want you to count out of sequence from 0 to 30. So no 1, 3, 5, no sequence. 1, 15, 7, 19, 22, 8. Like, I want you to count like that, between 1 and 30. Just count a whole bunch of numbers. Okay. So what we just did there now, and to recap, we first looked for a shape. It could be, I said circle, but it could be squares. It could be anything you want. Then we looked for colors, 4 of everything. Colors, I said blue, could be any color. Then we looked for textures. And then we did the counting. Now, to count out of sequence, to count 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, I don't need to be thinking. But to count out of sequence, I need to be thinking. And to do that, my brain has to be here, right? So if you are in a situation where you are feeling overwhelmed, right? The thinking brain's not working anymore. I'm not safe. This is too much, too fast, too soon. And then that flips open and you're here now. The way to bring it back is tapping, then counting, looking for colors, looking for shapes, looking for textures. And specifically that counting out of sequence brings the thinking brain back online. You can't count out of sequence without thinking. So we are more regulated when the brain is all together like that. Okay, so that's something you can try to help. And there's one last thing I want to teach you, which is called havening. Okay, and it just is very gently, just wiping your arms like a gentle stroke, as if you'd say, "Oh, sweetie, dear one," right? Will these techniques work for a panic attack? I'm going to, thanks, Melanie, and I'm going to answer that now. Just wiping like this. Okay. And now on the forehead, as if you're saying, "Oh, sweetie." Just wipe on the forehead very softly. Feel the soft touch. Feel how nice that is. Wiping, wiping. And now under the eyes again, like that. Okay. All right. If there is a panic attack, you can do the tapping, but much faster. Much faster. Okay. We want to really let the nervous system feel it. And if you have a scarf, I don't have one here, but you can put a scarf around you, or if you don't have a scarf available, you grab hold of the clothes that you're holding and you pull them towards you like that, and you feel the tightness. Okay. What happens is when we are in, let's say someone next to you, you hold them very tight, helps the nervous system to settle. Okay, so those are things to try. The other thing, feel your feet on the ground, feel your bum in the chair, feel your back against the chair, and really start bringing yourself back through the senses, feeling, right? Feet on the ground. You can also put a hand on the heart, and you try all of those things. If it's happening to you, start with the tapping, the pulling the clothing tight, or if you're with someone, let them hold you tight to almost, constrict what's happening so that it can come out. And then looking around. Now, I once had a friend of mine who was very claustrophobic, and one thing she never did was go in the lift, in the elevator. And she managed to avoid them. And then she was invited to a bar mitzvah at the top of Azrieli Towers. There was no other way to get there. She wasn't taking a helicopter. So she was like, "How am I going to get there?" So I said, "You're going to get into the lift, and now you're going to write them down." She had them written down. 4 circles, 4 blue things, 4 textures, counting, and the next thing, the doors open, and she got out. Right? I did it also for someone who used these techniques, and you'll try them for yourself. They work. Who used these techniques. She was gone on this family vacation. It was an English family that was going to Africa on safari. She was petrified of the animals, right? But, it was family holiday and she wasn't not going. And she did this technique every time she was out on the bush in the safari. She did these things, looked around, and in the end, her nervous system was so calm, she actually enjoyed the animals. She found the ones that felt easier for her, right? So there are things that you can do to help your nervous system. Okay. And now I'm happy to open up to any other questions. How was that for you? Any comments or feedback? Oh, I see Q&A. Okay, let me just read here. That's not him. I'm not 100% understanding this first one. I will come back to let this anonymous person can just come live maybe and ask. I'm reading here. Someone wrote, my happy memory of my father, blessed memory, smiling and eating his challah French toast in my home on a beautiful sunny day. How special, how special. Just love that. I love doing mitzvot. Good. Then do. Listen to your body, and the more you do, and don't just do the mitzvot, but notice in your body, when I do that, what does it feel like? How do I know I love doing it? What tells me I love it? Ah, right? That's what tells you. That's when we're in the healing side. Okay, so don't just be in the thinking, I love doing this, I love doing kind things. But when I do kind things, what does that feel like in my body? How do I know I love it? What tells me I love it? Yeah, not at all, not interesting to comment on. I didn't understand that one. Okay. This has been fabulous. Thanks, Andrea. Okay. There will be a recording, I believe there will be a recording.
Yeah.
And okay. Okay. Is there anything else? And the person who wrote that first Q&A, if they want to say anything about that, I didn't understand fully. Is there a way to comment on that or come on live? Is there a way to do that? All right. Or if you want to type, I just didn't understand fully what I would like to add extra support capacities ideas to lift up those with different reactions to me. So I think just share what you've learned today. Share what you've learned of how we can help ourselves. You know, this technique of looking for colors, I've used it myself, looking for counting textures, shapes. It sounds simple, but it really does help. And especially this one, the pulling, the helping contain the nervous system is amazing, amazing, amazing. Okay.
Okay, Devorah, I'd like to thank you for providing us with the tools to better understand ourselves and our bodies in such an easy, understand, and professional manner. Once we take care of ourselves, we'll be able to take care of others. This was the first in a series of sessions that Devorah does. If anybody'd like another session that will continue, please let me know at Telfed, phone the main desk, ask for Louise, and we'll see if we can set another session up. Thank you so much to everybody who participated tonight.
And I've
Thank
just
you again,
added my
Devorah.
web address. If anyone wants to see more or understand more about somatic experiencing or wants to reach out and have a session with me, please feel free to be in touch. And thank you, Louise, for inviting me. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you all. Hoping for better times.